Hold up. What if I told you that while you've been watching Bluey thinking it's all sunshine and family fun, the animators have been secretly painting trauma, death symbols, and relationship disasters right behind the main action? I mean, dark messages about broken marriages, abandonment, and mortality metaphors so dark they'd make your therapist concerned. Here are 15 dark messages in blue that most parents miss completely, but once you see them, you just can't unsee them. So you know how everyone was convinced Chili was pregnant and Bluey would get a little brother or sister? Well, the episode The Sign totally crushed that dream. Now, look closely. There's this graduation photo hanging behind older Bluey that shows exactly 4 family members. No mysterious fifth wheeler in sight. It's like the show is quietly whispering, "Nope, this is it, folks," without actually saying anything. You know the brutal part? This could also mean Chili tried to have another baby, but couldn't. Or maybe she lost one along the way. Either way, that photo is basically a memorial to hopes that never happened. Fans spent years theorizing about expanding the family, and the show answered with a single, silent image that says more than any dialogue ever could. Sometimes, the things we don't see hurt more than what we do. Speaking of things that hurt more than expected, here's where things get really heavy. Brandy and Chili's baby troubles aren't just random plot points. They're actually based on how red healers struggle with reproduction in real life. Yeah, the writers literally use the actual dog's biology to tell human stories about infertility and loss. Brandy's obvious pain around kids, and Chili's hints about losing a baby before Bluey, that's not fictional drama. That's real-world genetics playing out in cartoon form. The show basically took one of the most devastating experiences couples can face and wrapped it in animated dog families so kids could watch while adults quietly process their own trauma. It's genius and heartbreaking at the same time. Every time Brandy awkwardly avoids baby talk or Chili gets that distant look, you're watching biological reality disguised as family entertainment. The writers knew exactly what they were doing, creating this parallel that hits way too close to home for anyone who's been there. Now that $5 bill Bluey gets seems to have a tracking sticker, and if you follow it across episodes, it sends a heartbreaking message that you probably missed. In the episode Markets, the money bounces from Bluey to a street performer, then gets passed around the community like a hot potato. This isn't just about economics. Pay attention to how the bill moves from Bluey's excited hands after losing her tooth, representing that pure moment of believing in magic, to a street performer who needs it for survival. Then, it circulates through the community, becoming ordinary currency instead of a special gift. Each transaction strips away more of its original meaning until it's just paper with no connection to the wonder it once represented. Do you see that? That right there is a metaphor for growing up. Everything that once felt special eventually becomes routine, and the things we treasured as children get spent on adult necessities. Well, I'm hoping you won't lose your mind when you see what they did to family photos. You'd think a missing puzzle piece would be innocent enough, right? Wrong! When Bingo's trying to solve her Kiwi question and that New Zealand piece is missing, Bandit's "Not Again" hits harder than a brick. Just so you know, Kiwi is a small bird in New Zealand that can't fly. New Zealand gets left off maps so often. The show took this real phenomenon and turned it into a quick joke that's actually pretty dark when you think about it. Imagine living in a place that cartographers regularly forget exists. Your whole nation, your culture, your people, just gone from someone's version of the world. That puzzle piece represents every time someone's homeland gets erased from global consciousness, whether through ignorance or carelessness. It's a surprisingly political moment disguised as a geography lesson. Did anyone else get serious Truman Show vibes from that toy aisle scene? Bluey's just playing with family when she walks past a toy box featuring herself and her house. Like, what kind of meta nightmare is that? Either Bluey's some kind of celebrity in her own world, or something way more sinister is happening. Think about it. Who made that toy? How do they know what her house looks like? Is someone watching her family and turning their private life into merchandise? The implications are honestly terrifying when you dig into them. It's like finding out your daily routine has been turned into someone else's entertainment without your knowledge. Maybe it's innocent product placement, or maybe it's hinting that Bluey's entire reality is being observed and commodified by forces she can't even comprehend. Either way, it's giving serious surveillance state energy wrapped in colorful packaging. But sometimes the darkest messages come in the most beautiful moments. That rainbow scene in Rain looks gorgeous until you realize what it actually represents. Chili's watching Bluey play while quietly dealing with her thoughts, and when that rainbow appears, it's not just pretty weather. In real life, rainbow babies are children born after pregnancy loss. They're the light that comes after the storm. The way Chili pauses and stares at that rainbow suggests Bluey and Bingo are her rainbow babies, born after she lost someone else. The silence at that moment is deafening because it's filled with grief that can't be spoken out loud in a kid's show. Every parent who's experienced loss knows that look. It's when something beautiful reminds you of what you've been through to get to this moment. The rainbow is simply a symbol of survival, healing, and the joy that can exist alongside permanent sadness. It's one of those moments where the show trusts adult viewers to understand the deeper meaning, while kids just see pretty colors. Enough of video games. Poor Cornelius gets put through the emotional ringer in the background. In Quiet Game, he's on a date with this girl who's also been spotted with another dog in earlier episodes. Later, you see him sitting alone under a tree, looking absolutely heartbroken. So, even cartoon dogs can't escape messy relationships? That's a lot. The girl Cornelius is dating appears with different dogs throughout the series, suggesting she's either dating multiple partners simultaneously or moving from relationship to relationship quickly. Later episodes show Cornelius eventually dating Terrier's mom, but the journey to that happiness includes real emotional pain and growth. I absolutely love how the creators chose to include this adult relationship drama in a children's show, acknowledging that even in the safest family environments, love can be a little messy and painful sometimes. Now, take a quick second. If you've ever been through a relationship drama like Cornelius, smash that like button so I know you feel his pain. Let's talk about Muffin for a little bit. Muffin refusing to share the phone during Facey Talk seems bratty until you realize it's happening during her parents' argument. She's literally hoarding the only escape from family tension. That's some deep psychological stuff disguised as typical kid behavior. While Stripe and Trixie argue in the background, Muffin clings to the phone not because she's being selfish, but because it represents a connection to stability and normalcy through her video call with Bluey and Bingo. That looks like a typical child just being possessive, but it's actually a trauma response disguised as bratty behavior. Children who feel unsafe or stressed often become possessive of anything that brings them comfort, and Muffin's attachment to this particular phone call makes perfect sense when viewed through the lens of her home environment. It shows just how childhood coping mechanisms are often misunderstood by adults who don't recognize the underlying emotional needs driving the behavior. I know you're already screaming, "How on earth did I miss that?" Don't worry, I've got you covered. Still on the Facey Talk episode, Stripe and Trixie's arguments hit differently when you realize Muffin's completely unfazed by it all. She's used to her parents fighting in the background while she plays, which is honestly more realistic than most family shows dare to be. The creators muted the audio but left the visuals, so you get to witness domestic tension in real time. Children who are accustomed to parental conflict often develop emotional numbing as a coping mechanism, and Muffin's casual indifference suggests this isn't the first time she's witnessed her parents in heated disagreement. Stripe and Trixie's background argument continues, even as they're supposed to be connecting with family, suggesting that their marital problems are so persistent they can't even pause them for a family call. Later scenes show them reconciling, but the damage has been done. We've seen behind the curtain of their marriage and witnessed the instability that Muffin has learned to accept as normal. It's a brutally honest portrayal of how children adapt to dysfunction. But this wasn't the only time they got pretty aggressive. During Rad and Frisky's wedding in The Sign, Stripe gets increasingly aggressive, and Little Socks starts copying his behavior with cake toppers. Are kids absorbing parental conflict? Check. Family drama ruining special occasions? Double check. The happy wedding becomes a showcase for how dysfunction spreads through generations. The most chilling part of this scene isn't Stripe's aggressive behavior. It's watching Socks unconsciously mirror it with the wedding cake decorations. Children are emotional sponges who absorb and replicate the behaviors they witness. And seeing Socks play out her father's aggression with cake toppers reveals how deeply parental conflict affects young minds. The fact that their child processes this conflict through play suggests she's trying to make sense of emotions and behaviors that are too complex for her to understand. The creators chose to include this generational trauma theme in the background of a joyful wedding, creating a stark reminder that family patterns repeat themselves unless consciously broken. Now, hit that subscribe button, or else Stripe's wedding behavior will become your relationship model. Childhood trauma takes many forms, though. Mackenzie's space adventure seems fun until you realize he's literally reliving abandonment trauma through play. The kid genuinely thought his mom left him at the park, and that fear is so deep it's become his go-to story for imaginative games. That's not normal childhood play. That's a traumatized brain trying to process terror through the only way it knows how. The fact that he keeps returning to this memory, even in a fantasy setting, shows how deeply that moment of thinking he was abandoned affected him. Children's brains aren't equipped to handle the possibility that their caregivers might disappear, so when it happens, even briefly, it leaves permanent scars. Mackenzie's teacher, Calypso, helps him work through it, which is beautiful, but the damage is already done. He'll probably spend his whole life with a little voice asking, "What if they don't come back?" every time someone's late or doesn't answer their phone immediately. Play therapy is real, and Mackenzie's doing it without even knowing. Sometimes, though, the trauma is more internal. Bandit might be the fun dad everyone loves, but that mirror scene in Granny Mobile reveals something way more vulnerable. Someone comments on his body, and suddenly, this confident, playful father is checking himself out like a teenager worried about fitting in. It's brutal to watch because it shows how fragile even the seemingly strongest people can be when it comes to self-image. Here's a guy who literally plays games for a living, makes his kids laugh constantly, and seems to have life figured out, but one random comment about his appearance sends him into self-doubt mode. That's every parent who's ever wondered if they're still attractive, still relevant, still worthy of respect as they age. The show doesn't make a big deal out of it, but that quiet moment of insecurity reveals that even cartoon dads have midlife crises. It's particularly heartbreaking because Bandit's worth has nothing to do with his appearance, but society's comments can make anyone question themselves. And sometimes the struggle is about finding happiness itself. Picture this: you're on a beautiful family vacation. Everything looks perfect from the outside, and your mom is reading a book about how to be happy. That's not relaxing. That calls for concern, and I'll explain. When Chili's on that beach reading self-help about happiness, it's screaming that despite having everything people think should make you content, she's still struggling internally. This is a woman with a loving husband, 2 healthy kids, financial stability, and family support, yet she needs a manual for something that should come naturally. It suggests depression, anxiety, or just the emotional exhaustion that comes with constantly caring for everyone else while neglecting your own needs. The fact that she's doing this research during vacation time makes it even more poignant. She can't even relax without working on her mental state. It's the reality of motherhood that nobody talks about. Sometimes, having everything you thought you wanted still isn't enough to fix what's broken inside. Did you notice those string lights during the fancy restaurant scene? Well, in the episode Fancy Restaurant, Bluey and Bingo want to see Mom and Dad kiss, so they set up their parents in a fancy restaurant. But the string lights begin to die one by one in the background, while the family tries to create magic. It's like watching happiness flicker and fade in real time. I don't know about you, but I think the creators obviously turned failing light bulbs into a metaphor for life's imperfections, creeping into perfect moments. The lights don't fail all at once, which would be all dramatic and noticeable. Instead, they die gradually, mimicking how real-life disappointments often creep in slowly rather than arriving as obvious catastrophes. This detail resonates deeply with anyone who has tried to create magical moments for their family, only to have small, technical failures or environmental problems chip away at the experience. It's harder to bear than you think. The creators used something so simple to explore themes about the fragility of happiness and the persistence of imperfection. Well, so much for some faulty light bulbs, but this final hidden message will strike you so hard you'll never see it coming. Judo's attitude problems start making way more sense when you realize what's probably happening at home. This kid isn't just naturally mean, she's acting out because she's missing something crucial. The hints about an absent father and possible younger sibling paint a picture of a child competing for attention in a household where love feels scarce. When kids are jealous and clingy around other families, it's usually because they're not getting enough security at home. Judo sees Bluey's stable family dynamic, and it probably highlights everything she doesn't have. Her mom's doing her best as a single parent, but Judo's still processing the absence of a father figure and maybe dealing with a baby sibling who takes up most of mom's energy. That's a lot for a little kid to handle. So, of course, she's going to act out when she sees other families that look more complete than hers. She isn't being a brat, like many would think. That's her silently crying for help. Sometimes, the kids who seem the most difficult are actually the ones hurting the most. After digging through all these hidden psychological landmines, we now see that these Bluey creators have been running a masterclass in sublime storytelling, hiding real adult trauma into children's entertainment. No wonder it takes them 5 months to create one Bluey episode. I'm sure you'll be more conscious when you watch your next episode of Bluey. Want to discover what other innocent cartoons are hiding dark psychological messages? Click this next video. Trust me, you're not ready for what we found.